I'm, you know, I'm so interested in this, and we just don't have enough time. I would love to have you back and go into more of the stories. Are you familiar with, I don't know if you can see this, Veterans Life magazine?
No, I've not seen that before.
When I see you, I will give you, I have the editor as a friend. Um, but it might be something that you can share some of your stories um, with. I know that you've mentioned to me that you were doing speaking, or you had something down at the World War II Museum. That's the is that the one in New Orleans?
Right, yeah.
Uh,
I haven't spoken there. I've spoken in California. I've spoken in Arizona, or no, Utah, Arizona. I've spoken in a number of places across the country for the World War II conferences, because I've gone to like the Fifth Air Base. They were on the island of Mindanao in the Philippines, in the Philippines, and then the other reunions I've gone to, I usually, and for like veterans groups, I've done, well, it used to be the World War, what is it called? Um, there were POWs specifically, and they had their own units in every veterans hospital. Um, I have to tell you this story. A man by the name of Marshall Draper. He was the first American airman shot down over Europe. He was flying with the British, and they were in an A-20, and I never knew anyone that flew in an A-20 but him. They were trying to take out a German base in the Netherlands, and so they're coming in very low, and he looks out of the front, the plexiglass front of it, and he sees this German who's got an ACAC, 88, and he's going to fire it at him, and he watches him as he blows up the A-20 aircraft. When Marshall wakes up, he's on the floor of the ocean, right next to the Netherlands. And he thought he was dead, and then he realized he was in the water, so he pushes himself up and he crawls out and he sits down on this sandy little beach. And there's all these people that are lined up, lots of Germans and everybody else, and no one's coming to help him. And he'd broken his neck, and his clothes were shattered because he'd gone through the plexiglass front. And so he sits there, and he just kind of gets his composure, and he gets up, and he's kind of wobbling, and finally he gets close, and they pull him up. He's just walked through a minefield. And then he's in the hospital for months and months and months, and finally ends up at Stalag 3. And to make matters worse, every holiday of his getting shot down, which was July 4th, 1942, the commanding officer, Colonel Clark, would bring him the German cross with pieces of sausage attached to it. And he said, I was so damn mad when I got that every year. He says, but I did like the sausage, it was all
right.
a part of it. But he
Living
became
the-
but he became a code writer, and he literally saved people, because every person that came into the prison camp, they interrogated them to find out what was going on, and the pilots jumping out of the front hatch were getting their parachute harness caught on a hook, and it
yeah.
was killing them. And so he wrote 3 letters to his quasi girlfriend, and then when the guys were coming in and no one was getting killed that way, they knew that they had solved the problem. And really, at that point, the British taught us all about how to talk to our men, how to keep in touch with them, how to get them guns, how to get them cameras with film, how to get them tubes for their radios that they listen to every night. I mean, it was amazing. It just, and the Great Escape, for those of you who've seen it, what they did is really what they did. They were, they did. It was incredible. And it was the show, if you see the movie, The Great Escape, none of them were Americans. They were all British, all Commonwealth, from Kiwis to, well, I shouldn't say that, from those anyway, from Australia, from all over, even India. So it's pretty interesting that how good the British were to the Americans and how they really helped them with being able to talk to their POWs and figure things out. And then when the war was over with, they destroyed everything, and then Korea happens, and they couldn't talk to their POWs. It was a mess. It was terrible. Yeah.
It's I don't know how anybody can say thank you enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you are touching on the answer to that by sharing the stories. If there's somebody that unfortunately just about all the people that fought during World War II have passed, but if their children or their grandchildren know the stories, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, they can look at my website, which is Wars Voices, WARSVOICES.com. And I have a couple stories on that. I've got a guy who he saw the first actions at Pearl Harbor. And then I've got, I think it's Jack Kapmeyer, and he was in the second Schweinfurt mission, and they lost 60 planes. They lost 600 men that day. Now, not all of them were killed, and some of them did escape and got back to their bases, but a number of them were in prison camp for a long time. And the officers during World War II, they had it much better than, say, the sergeants who were gunners and radio operators and that sort of thing. And those men were forced marched throughout Europe, and you never hear those stories, but we believe there was about 100,000 Allied POWs walking across Europe. The men who were at Stalag Luft 4, they walked 82 days and 400 to 600 miles. And it was the coldest winter on record. They took them out of their camp in February. In January, they took the Stalag Luft 3 POWs out, but in February, they took the guys out of Stalag Luft 4. And they were laying down and dying. They were starving. They were eating. One man said he was eating bark and leaves just to feel something in his gut. And they put them in barns, and they got fleas all over them, and say things like, those little bastards were all over me, and some of them, I laughed and I cried, and I just felt like, I hope I walked alongside of them. Their stories now I'm writing about, and that's really important to me.